the gas that ended wars. The ruins of Virex Prime were silent in the way only conquered worlds ever became. Broken spires clawed at a bruised sky. Streets once paved in crystalline alloy lay shattered, buried under ash and alien debris. The last human resistance unit stood boxed in at the heart of the city. 27 soldiers surrounded by more than 3,000 coalition shock troops. Above them, floating like patient carrion birds, hung the gas drones. Coalition Commander Zeltor observed from his command platform, his multiple eyes unblinking. He had overseen 47 planetary subjugations. This one had taken longer than expected. Humans were resilient, yes, but resilience had limits. Every species broke eventually. He raised a claw. Deploy Thanatox 9. The drones responded instantly. Their vents opened, and the air itself seemed to bruise. Purple vapor poured downward in thick, rolling waves, hugging the ground, slipping through armor seams, cracks in walls, lungs. It glowed faintly, beautiful and terrible, like poison turned into art. Thanatox 9. Across the galaxy, it was known simply as terror gas. Not a chemical, not a toxin. It bypassed flesh entirely and spoke directly to the nervous system, forcing the mind to relive its deepest fears with perfect clarity. Victims didn't just see their nightmares, they became them. Heart failure, madness, suicide, total psychological collapse. Entire civilizations had surrendered within minutes. Zeltor waited for the screams. They came quickly. Human soldiers fell to their knees, weapons clattering against stone. Some tore at their helmets. Others screamed names into the gas. Children, lovers, lost worlds. Fear made audible. The coalition troops shifted uneasily. Even through sealed armor and psychic dampeners, they could sense it, the raw psychic agony bleeding into the air. Then Zeltor noticed the anomaly. One human was still standing. He stood in the open street, directly beneath the densest cloud of Thanatox 9. His helmet lay discarded at his feet, visor shattered. Purple mist curled around his face as he inhaled slowly, deliberately. Lieutenant Marcus Hale. Coalition sensors locked onto him immediately. Neural scans spiked. Fear centers activated at catastrophic levels. Zeltor leaned forward. "Observe," he said. "This one will break last." Hale closed his eyes. The gas went to work. In his mind, the universe burned. He saw Earth's sky split open by orbital fire. Heard evacuation sirens that never stopped. Felt the deck of a transport shudder as it launched without enough seats. He relived the screams of civilians trapped behind blast doors. The moment he chose to save his squad instead of a city block full of strangers. Fear wrapped around him like a living thing. And then, it stabilized. The neural spike plateaued. Then smoothed. Coalition analysts froze. "That is impossible," one whispered. Hale exhaled slowly. When he opened his eyes again, they were clear. And he smiled. Not wide, not hysterical. A small, infuriating smirk. As if this galaxy-ending terror weapon was merely an inconvenience. Zeltor's mandibles clicked in agitation. Increased concentration. Maximum output. The drones obeyed. The purple clouds thickened until visibility dropped to mere meters. The air vibrated with psychic pressure. Human screams turned to silence as bodies collapsed unconscious or worse. Hale remained standing. He rolled his shoulders once, as if loosening stiff muscles, then bent to pick up his rifle. His hands were steady, his breathing calm. He keyed his comm unit. "Command," he said evenly, voice echoing across the open channel. "They've deployed it." Static crackled, then a familiar voice answered. "Confirmed. You go, Marcus." Hale glanced around at the fallen city, at the alien ranks beyond the fog. "Yeah," he said. "Guess we were right." Zeltor watched in mounting disbelief as Hale began to walk forward toward the coalition lines. Every step sent ripples through the gas. Alien soldiers instinctively took half steps back, training weapons that suddenly felt far less reassuring. "This is not possible," Zeltor hissed. No species can endure prolonged exposure. Hale stopped a dozen meters from the front line. He looked directly at the command platform. Coalition optics zoomed in on his face. The smirk was still there. Hale raised his voice, letting it carry. "Hey," he called casually. "Is this the scary part?" Silence. Then, from somewhere deep within the purple fog, human beacons flared to life. One by one, then dozens. Signals the Coalition had assumed destroyed. Human soldiers began to rise. Masks disengaged. Helmets removed. They stepped into the gas. Zeltor felt something unfamiliar coil in his chest. Not fear. His species had evolved beyond such primitive emotion. But the realization that something fundamental had gone wrong. Hale took another breath of Thanatox, 9, and laughed softly. The gas that ended wars drifted harmlessly around him. And for the first time in Coalition history, terror failed to do its job. The species that learned to suffer. The Coalition command platform descended 5 meters as emergency stabilizers engaged. Zeltor did not order it. His talons were locked around the rail, joints rigid, as he watched humans rise from the ruins like revenants. One by one at first, then in squads, then platoons, figures emerged from the violet fog, weapons up, movements precise and terrifyingly calm. Thanatox, 9 still saturated the air. Sensors confirmed it. Concentration levels were well beyond lethal thresholds for any known sentient species. And yet the humans walked. Coalition analysts flooded Zeltor's auditory feed with overlapping data spikes. Neural overload should be irreversible. Fear response not collapsing. Emotional regulation increasing under exposure. Zeltor silenced them with a gesture. "Ow," he demanded. "Are they not broken?" Below, Lieutenant Marcus Hale advanced at the head of the human line. His boots crunched over debris slick with purple residue. The gas curled around his legs, clung to his skin, seeped into his lungs with every breath. Inside his mind, the visions intensified. The gas dredged deeper now, tearing at memories long buried. Training accidents, mass graves on colony worlds, the sound of a friend begging over a broken comm channel while orbital fire rained down. It wanted him to drown in it. Hale let it in. That was the difference. Humanity had never evolved on a gentle world. Their history was a chain of disasters stacked end to end. Ice ages, plagues, extinction events, wars that left continents glowing in the dark. Fear wasn't an anomaly in the human psyche. It was familiar. The gas forced Hale to relive terror, but humans didn't panic when afraid. They focused. They compartmentalized. They adapted. The fear became fuel. His heart rate steadied. Muscles aligned. Vision sharpened. Around him, other human soldiers experienced the same transformation. Panic gave way to clarity. Memories stopped overwhelming and instead organized themselves into cold, functional resolve. Coalition troops began to falter. They had trained for screaming enemies, for broken enemies, for surrendering enemies. They had never trained for an enemy that walked forward while reliving hell. A Coalition infantry unit fired first. Plasma bolts tore through the fog, scoring buildings, melting stone. Hale dropped to one knee, returned fire with control bursts. 2 alien soldiers went down, armor smoking. Human squads flanked, moving in perfect silence. Zeltor felt the engagement slip beyond his control. "Deploy secondary terror amplification," he ordered. A new signal pulsed through the gas drones. Modulation designed to synchronize fear responses to turn individual terror into a feedback loop. The effect was immediate. Several Coalition soldiers screamed as their own dampeners failed, overwhelmed by the amplified psychic noise. They dropped their weapons, clawing at their helmets, exposed to the very weapon they had unleashed. They collapsed. Hale watched one alien convulse, eyes wide with incomprehension. He didn't feel satisfaction, only certainty. "Command," Hale said into his comm, voice steady amid the chaos. "Their gas doesn't break us. It sharpens us." The reply came instantly. "Understood. Phase 2 authorized." Across Virex Prime, human transmitters activated. Not weapons. Archives. Human history poured into coalition channels, raw, unfiltered neural recordings and data logs. The Black Death, world wars, nuclear standoffs, cities burning, then rebuilt, colonies lost, then reclaimed. Centuries of fear endured and survived. Coalition ships in orbit began reporting mass neurological shock. Species evolved in stable climates, under unchanging skies, suddenly forced to process the cumulative trauma of a species that had stared extinction in the face repeatedly and kept going. Zeltor staggered as the data hit his own dampeners. How can they exist like this? He whispered. Below, Hale reached the base of the command platform. He looked up, purple fog swirling around him like a crown. Coalition honor guards raised their weapons, but hesitated. Their fear doctrine was collapsing. Their ultimate weapon had been rendered meaningless. Zeltor descended the last few meters, forcing himself to face the human. You should be broken, the commander said, voice shaking despite himself. You should be screaming. Hale met his gaze. We did, he said simply, for thousands of years. He gestured to the gas-choked city. This, Hale inhaled again, slow and deliberate. This is just memory. The coalition commander took an involuntary step back. For the first time in his long career, Zeltor understood the true danger of humanity. Not their weapons, not their fleets, but the fact that fear itself, had failed to stop them. And when fear stopped working, the galaxy's old rules died with it. When fear stopped working, the battle for Virex Prime ended without a signal. There was no single moment of collapse, no dramatic explosion or final charge. Instead, the Coalition's war doctrine simply unraveled. Across the city, alien units hesitated. Orders contradicted sensor data. Terror gas readings remained at lethal saturation. Yet human forces advanced with mechanical precision, moving through fire and fog as if both were expected inconveniences. Coalition troops had never learned how to fight an enemy that did not break. Lieutenant Marcus Hale led his platoon up the avenue toward the central spire. Human soldiers moved in silence, hand signals replacing shouted commands. The purple gas thinned only slightly, but it no longer mattered. Their breathing had synchronized, heart rates locked into steady rhythms. Fear was present. It simply wasn't in control. Coalition resistance stiffened near the spire. Heavy plasma emplacements activated, saturating the street in blue-white fire. Hale raised a fist. His unit dispersed instantly, flowing around the kill zone like water around stone. Return fire was disciplined, devastating. Coalition armor, designed to intimidate, not endure sustained kinetic assault, failed under focused human tactics. One emplacement went dark, then another. Above, Coalition ships attempted to reposition, but orbital crews were collapsing at their stations. Human broadcast continued. Not propaganda. Truth. Every channel carried humanity's survival record. Not victories, survivals. Every time humans had faced extinction and adapted. Every time fear had threatened to erase them and instead forged them. Coalition minds fractured under the weight of it. Species that had never known hunger or planetary disaster now felt it all at once. Their neural architecture, optimized for stability, could not process chaos as humans did. Ships drifted out of formation. Some powered down entirely. Others fired blindly into space. Zeltor watched the fleet status collapse across his tactical display. His species' greatest strength, psychological dominance, had turned inward, eating them alive. This cannot be reversed, his chief analyst said, voice trembling. Their fear does not escalate. It stabilizes. Zeltor closed his eyes. They had built their empire on the assumption that terror was universal. They had never encountered a species that had learned to coexist with it. On the ground, Hale breached the spire's interior. Coalition command staff attempted to flee. Human Marines moved with ruthless efficiency, disarming rather than executing, pushing forward without hesitation. A coalition general, tall, plated in ceremonial armor, was dragged before Hale by two soldiers. The alien psychic dampener had shattered. Its eyes were wild. "Monster," it rasped. "What are you?" Hale studied him for a moment. Then he keyed an open channel. "This is Lieutenant Marcus Hale, Terran Defense Force," he said, broadcasting across all coalition frequencies. "Cease fire. This war is over." The general laughed hysterically. "You think this ends because you walked through fear?" Hale leaned closer. "No," he said quietly. "It ends because you don't know how to fight without it." He gestured to the shattered city, to the fallen coalition troops convulsing in their own tear gas. "You trained us how you win wars," Hale continued. "We just adapted." At that moment, the last coalition terror array shut down. The gas drones powered off one by one, drifting lifelessly from the sky. The purple fog began to dissipate. With it went the last illusion of coalition control. Across Virex Prime, alien units laid down their weapons, not from fear, but confusion. Their worldview had collapsed. Their most sacred military principle had been invalidated. In orbit, Coalition High Command transmitted a priority signal. "Ceasefire. Unconditional." Hale received the transmission and closed his eyes briefly. Not in relief, but in acknowledgement. The cost had been high, but humanity was still standing. He turned to his squad. "Secure the area," he said. "Medical aid for anyone still breathing, human or not." One of his soldiers hesitated. "Sir, after what they did?" Hale nodded once. "Exactly because of what they did." Outside, sunlight finally broke through thinning clouds, cutting through the last wisps of purple haze. Fear had ruled the galaxy for millennia. On Virex Prime, it had failed. And when fear stopped working, an empire built on terror had nothing left to stand on. The day terror died, the Galactic Assembly had never been silent before. Delegates from 100 species filled the vast amphitheater, their forms arranged by gravity tolerance and atmospheric need. Normally, the chamber hummed with translation overlays, diplomatic posturing, and ritualized arrogance. Today, there was only quiet. At the center of the floor stood a single human. Lieutenant Marcus Hale wore no armor, no medals, just a simple uniform, sleeves rolled down, hands relaxed at his sides. Behind him, suspended in the air as a holographic projection, replayed footage from Virex Prime. Purple gas rolling through ruined streets, humans walking forward while alien soldiers collapsed screaming. The footage ended on one frame. Hale inhaling calmly and smirking. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The coalition delegation shifted uneasily. Their empire still existed, but only in name. Entire fleets were grounded. Their psychological warfare divisions had been dismantled overnight. The Speaker of the Assembly, an ancient, translucent being, addressed Hale. "You stand accused," the Speaker said, "of destabilizing galactic balance." Hale met its gaze evenly. "Balance built on terror isn't balance," he replied. "It's a countdown." A coalition legal emissary rose, voice strained. "Your species has rendered fear-based deterrence obsolete. Our doctrine protected countless systems from prolonged war." Hale nodded once. So did walls. Until someone learned how to climb. The Speaker raised a limb, silencing the chamber. "The question before us," it said slowly, "is not whether humanity survived. It is whether the galaxy can survive humanity." The words hung heavy. Hale took a breath, not of gas, but of recycled chamber air. "We didn't come here to conquer," he said. "We came because you used a weapon designed to erase us from the inside." The projection shifted. Human historical records filled the chamber. Plagues, famines, mass graves, cities rebuilt from ash. Not dramatized, not edited. Raw. "This," Hale said, gesturing to it all, "is what we grew up with." Fear wasn't a weapon to us. It was a warning system. He looked directly at the coalition delegates. "You thought terror would end us because it ended everyone else." Silence. Instead, Hale continued, voice steady. "It reminded us who we are." A delegate from a non-aligned species spoke, voice trembling. "Then what are humans, Lieutenant?" Hale considered the question. "We're the species that learned to suffer," he said, "and didn't let it decide what we became." The assembly recessed for exactly 47 seconds. When they reconvened, the Speaker announced the ruling. Effective immediately, all fear-based weapons, including Thanatox-class systems, are banned under Galactic law. Their use will be considered a crime against sentience. A shockwave rippled through the chamber. Fear outlawed. The coalition emissary collapsed into its seat. The speaker turned to Hale. And humanity? Hale straightened. Humanity, the speaker said, is hereby classified as a psychological apex species. Any future engagement with Terran forces must assume immunity to fear-based coercion. Hale nodded once. Understood. As he turned to leave, the speaker asked one final question. Lieutenant Hale, if fear no longer works on you, what stops you? Hale paused at the threshold. He looked back at the chamber of beings who had ruled through terror for millennia. Then he smiled. Not a smirk this time, but something colder. Choice, he said. Outside the assembly, human ships waited in quiet formation. Not in triumph. Not in threat. In restraint. On Virex Prime, the last traces of purple gas finally dispersed into nothingness. Alien medics worked alongside human ones. Survivors stared at humans with something new in their eyes. Not fear, understanding. Across the galaxy, military academies rewrote doctrine. Terror divisions were disbanded. Historians marked a new epoch. The day terror died, and in its place, something far more dangerous took root. A species that could not be broken from the inside.